You get an email, subject line, exclusive opportunity, guaranteed 40% returns, limited spots remaining. Normally you'd delete it, but this one's different. It's from a friend, someone you trust, someone who's already made money. She sends a screenshot of her account balance, real numbers, real growth. She says the guy running it used to work at a hedge fund. He's soft-spoken, precise. He explains the strategy in a way that actually makes sense. You transfer a small amount first, it grows. You transfer more. Today, if this happened to you, you'd probably screenshot the email and send it to a group chat asking if it's a scam. Somebody would Google the guy's name in about 4 seconds. You'd feel embarrassed for even considering it. But here's the thing. Some of the smartest, most careful, most skeptical people on earth have fallen for exactly this. Doctors, lawyers, pension fund managers, federal regulators. This is the story of the scams that have stolen billions of dollars, not from fools in the dark, but from smart people in broad daylight. Because here's what nobody tells you about billion-dollar fraud. It isn't creative. It's repetitive. The same handful of blueprints wearing a different costume over and over again for more than 100 years. Once you see the blueprint, you start seeing it everywhere. Let's start with the man who accidentally lent his name to the entire concept. Boston, 1920. Charles Ponzi is an Italian immigrant with a scheme involving international postal reply coupons. The pitch is simple. Buy coupons cheap in one country, redeem them for stamps worth more in another, pocket the difference. It's technically legal. It is also nowhere near profitable enough to fund what Ponzi promised, which was 50% returns in 45 days. So what did he actually do? He paid early investors with money from new investors. That's it. That's the entire operation. No hidden genius, no secret algorithm. Just old money coming in, getting funneled straight back out to whoever invested first. Within months, Ponzi was pulling in the equivalent of over $200 million in today's money. Within a year, it collapsed completely, and investors lost what would now be worth over $20 million. Here's where it gets interesting because that structure, pay the old with the new, is the DNA of almost every scam that followed. Sometimes it's dressed up as an investment fund. Sometimes it's dressed up as a business opportunity where you recruit your friends and family. Strip away the branding, and it's the same shape every time. A pyramid that needs to keep growing forever, because the moment new money stops coming in, the whole thing collapses on the people at the bottom. Now let's talk about the man who ran the largest Ponzi scheme in human history and got away with it for almost 40 years. New York City. Bernie Madoff was not some fringe operator. He was a former chairman of the NASDAQ stock exchange, respected, connected. His firm occupied an entire floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, and one floor, the 17th, was where the actual fraud happened, sealed off from the rest of the company like a locked room in a mansion. Investors received monthly statements showing steady, boring, believable returns. Never spectacular, just consistently good, year after year, even during market crashes. That consistency was the entire con, because real markets don't behave that smoothly, and yet almost nobody asked why. When Madoff finally confessed in 2008, the total fraud was valued at $65 billion. Some victims lost their entire retirement in a single phone call. So how does one man fool federal regulators, Wall Street veterans, and his own employees for 4 decades? The honest answer is that people don't verify trust. They inherit it. If enough respected people vouch for you, nobody checks the math. Let's go to Houston, Texas, the year 2001. Enron was, on paper, one of the most innovative energy companies in the world. In reality, executives were using a labyrinth of shell companies to hide billions of dollars in debt, making a failing business look like a rocket ship. Auditors who were supposed to catch this were being paid so much in consulting fees by Enron itself that catching the fraud meant firing their biggest client. When it finally collapsed, Enron erased over $74 billion in shareholder value. Employees who had their retirement funds locked into company stock watched their entire savings disappear in weeks. The company that once employed 20,000 people didn't just go bankrupt. It became the textbook example of what happens when the people checking for fraud are financially dependent on not finding it. Now here's a scam that didn't even need old money and new money because it sold something far more valuable: a vision. Silicon Valley, 2003. A 19-year-old Stanford dropout named Elizabeth Holmes founded Theranos, promising a machine that could run hundreds of medical tests from a single drop of blood, pricked from your finger. No needles, no labs, just one tiny device. There was one enormous problem. The technology never actually worked. Behind the scenes, the company was secretly running blood samples on standard commercial machines while telling investors, regulators, and patients that its proprietary device was doing the work. At its peak, Theranos was valued at $9 billion, and real patients received real, dangerously inaccurate medical results from a machine that was, functionally, theater. Here's the question worth sitting with. Madoff and Ponzi needed your money to keep the illusion alive. Theranos needed something else entirely: your belief. Sometimes the product being sold isn't returns. It's the future itself, and people will hand over billions just to feel like they got there first. Let's talk about a different flavor of fraud entirely: the boiler room. Long Island, New York, the 1990s. Rows of young brokers on phones, working from scripts, calling ordinary people and pressuring them to buy stock in companies that barely exist. The firms quietly buy up shares of a near-worthless company for pennies, hype it relentlessly to unsuspecting buyers, then dump their own shares the moment the price spikes. It's called pump and dump. And it's one of the oldest tricks in market history because it exploits something very human: the fear of missing out on easy money. The brokers get rich. The company was always worthless. The people who bought in at the top are left holding stock that's suddenly worth almost nothing, wondering what happened to the guy who sounded so confident on the phone. Let's bring this all the way to the present. The Bahamas, 2022. FTX was one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges on Earth, run by a rumpled, curly-haired 20-something named Sam Bankman-Fried, who was photographed on magazine covers as the ethical face of crypto, someone who claimed to be giving his fortune away to charity. Behind the scenes, billions of dollars in customer funds, money people deposited believing it was simply being held for them, had quietly been funneled into a separate trading firm used to cover risky bets and personal expenses. When customers tried to withdraw their money during a market panic, there was nothing there. FTX collapsed in days, erasing an estimated $8 billion in customer funds almost overnight. And then there's the version of this that doesn't target institutions or investors at all. It targets you, personally, at your loneliest moment. It's often called pig butchering, a brutal name for a brutal process. Someone messages you, seemingly by accident. A wrong number, a friendly stranger. Over weeks, sometimes months, they build a relationship, trust, even affection. Then they mention an investment opportunity. Crypto, usually. They show you real-looking apps with real-looking growth. You invest a little, it grows, you invest more. And then, one day, the person disappears, along with every dollar you sent, and the app you were watching your fortune grow inside of was never connected to any real market at all. Globally, these scams now steal an estimated tens of billions of dollars every single year, and the number keeps climbing. Here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. We tend to picture scam victims as careless or greedy. The data says something different. Victims are often intelligent, financially literate, and specifically targeted because they have savings worth stealing. Madoff's victims included doctors and charities. Enron's victims were the company's own loyal employees. These were people who trusted the systems built to protect them. And the human cost rarely makes the headlines the way the dollar figures do. Retirements evaporated overnight. Marriages ended over hidden losses. Some victims of the Madoff collapse took their own lives in the months after the fraud came to light. Behind every billion-dollar number in this video is a much smaller, much heavier number: the individual people who believed they were finally getting ahead. And the uncomfortable truth is that almost nothing structural has changed. Auditors are still paid by the companies they audit. Regulators are still understaffed against industries with far more money and far better lawyers. The blueprint that worked for Charles Ponzi in 1920 still works today. just wearing the costume of whatever technology happens to be trending. Crypto today, something else tomorrow. So back to that email. The one from your friend with the screenshot and the soft-spoken guy who used to work at a hedge fund. Statistically, most people who lose money to fraud never see it coming, right up until the moment they don't. And somewhere right now on a phone, a new message is arriving, promising exactly what that person needs to hear.